Hi, I'm Shava Feinstein, auditory verbal therapist and teacher of the deaf for Columbia Regional Program.
Hello, my name is Arla Mellum, and I'm an audiologist with Columbia Regional Program.
Today, Arla and I are going to be discussing the Cottage Acquisition Scales for Listening, Language, and Speech, also known as the CASLLS.
At Columbia Regional Program, we've been using the CASLLS for almost 2 years, and we're finding that it allows us to take a really in-depth look at where our kids are functioning in the area of oral communication skills.
The CASLLS is a tool for collecting data on spoken communication skills. It focuses on the expressive and receptive language skills as well as social interaction and cognition. It was developed by Dr. Elizabeth Wilkes out of the University of Texas Health Science Campus in conjunction with the Sunshine Cottage School for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing located in San Antonio, Texas. The CASLLS is a tool for collecting data and monitoring progress while simultaneously targeting goals and working within the zone of proximal development to help increase student rates of learning. One of the unique features of the CASLLS is that it is designed on the natural sequence of language development. Also, it incorporates the concepts of form, content, and use as taught by Bloom and Leahy, and it incorporates Roger Brown's research on early language acquisition, grammatical morphemes, and mean length of utterance. It's thorough yet not cumbersome. It's small yet detailed and very specific. Also, it can be easily incorporated into IEPs and IFSPs because it utilizes the natural sequence of language development, and it covers those skills we would see in children, typically developing children ages 0 to 8 years. One of the less favorable aspects of the CASLLS is that as the language levels of our students develop and become more complex, there is an increase in the level of difficulty when examining and plotting their language directly onto the CASLLS forms. The CASLLS system is comprised of 5 forms, 4 language level forms and 1 sounds and speech form. The first form is the pre-verbal language level, and it covers the receptive and expressive language we would see in children 0 to 12 months of age, as well as cognition and social interaction. But its main focus is on beginning language behaviors. The next form used in the CASLLS system is the pre-sentence level, and this form covers those communication skills we would see in typically developing children ages 12 to 24 months of age. In this form, receptive and expressive language is covered in the areas of listening, linguistic meaning, expressive syntax, as well as a list of the most common first words. And next is the simple sentence level form. And this form covers those language structures we would see at about 24 to 48 months of age. One unique feature of the simple sentence level is that it can take up to 2 years to get through just the 24 to 30 month portion of the form. So 2 years to achieve 6 months of language development. Until a child gets through the entire simple sentence form, they're not really ready for academic language and therefore will lack the foundation for achieving in academic areas. The last of the language level forms to be used is the complex sentence form. This is the form that we use with children who are ready to develop more sophisticated language skills, including discourse skills, increasingly difficult question forms, and elaborated noun phrases. This is the type of language we see developing in children around 4 to 8 years of age. The last of the 5 forms is the sounds and speech level form. This form is used in conjunction with the language level forms and is based on the works of Daniel Ling. It covers the awareness of speech sounds, the phonetic production of speech sounds, as well as the phonologic production of speech sounds within words, phrases, sentences, structured conversation, and spontaneous conversation. And now Arla's going to share with you the ways in which we obtain the data we use on the CASLLS forms.
So how do we get started? It's most helpful to take a really good language sample. Formal tests do have their place, and we utilize lots of formal tests at Columbia Regional Program. However, the CASLLS relies on the premise that as we observe children in their interaction with others, we really get a measurement of their truest abilities. So the CASLLS gives you an in-depth look at the child's oral communication skills. Language sampling serves a variety of functions. First of all, it's a way of gathering data on the child. It allows a professional to observe a full range of abilities in a variety of settings. It shows the professional what the child can do and which skills are emerging or even absent. And most importantly, it really helps us take a look at the whole child and not just a small subset of language abilities. I want to stress that taking a good language sample helps us to see how the child is functioning in his everyday life. Taking data in this way allows us an opportunity to listen to errors and note the child's growth. It also helps us to choose appropriate targets and objectives, and is a systematic way to note where the child is functioning presently and where he needs to go next. Taking a language sample should involve a variety of contextual situations, which really gives you a better picture of where the child is functioning. Situations may include one in conversation, and that would involve at least a two-sided discourse with a real communication partner or partners. Number two would be narration, and that's where the child tells you about something. For example, on a Monday morning when the child comes into class, you might ask them to tell you what they did over the weekend. Number three would be a picture description, and you could use a picture, a book, a diagram, and have the child describe what's happening in that picture. With older children, it's a great idea to use a picture that has as many things happening as possible and have them describe what they see. Number four would be a procedural description. So that's really having the child tell you about how to do something, especially if it involves several steps. An example might be, you'd say to the child, what's your favorite sandwich? Tell me how you would make it. Number five would be an explanation, and that's really a more detailed description of how to do something and the steps involved, so that you would make the information understandable to a person or to an audience. Number six would be questioning, and that is a really important skill. It involves not only asking questions but answering questions. Older children, and even younger ones sometimes really enjoy playing the part of teacher, and that's a really good way to work on this skill. So now I'd like to try to answer a few questions regarding language sampling. You might ask, should we use a sampling form? Is there a specific form for doing this? Where and when do we sample? And how often should we be taking language samples? Well, in answer to that, I would say anytime, anywhere is a great time to mark down that language. It's recommended that to begin, you take at least 50 to 100 samples, 50 to 100 utterances, and preferably in an unstructured situation. Language sampling can be an ongoing process where you update on a consistent basis. I know in the preschool class with Columbia Regional Program, we're constantly writing down what the child is saying. People are giving me strips of paper with the child's language on them, and then later I'll transfer them onto the CASLLS forms. And another great idea for taking language samples, especially if it's a child who has lots to say, would be to video or audio tape, and then you can go back later and analyze the data. So here are some other points to remember about language sampling. Be aware of the context of the child's utterances, and recording the utterances of the child's communication partner or partners will really help you with this. Be careful that you record spontaneous, not prompted utterances, and imitations then would never be recorded. Again, you want to sample in a variety of contexts and record each following utterance as a separate utterance. Note the mistakes and the context of the child's mistakes. And then for older children or children who have more language, really take language samples during times other than in conversation. So when they're persuading, when they're giving a narration, when they're describing, when they're questioning, and so on. And it really helps to type up your language samples so that it's much easier later on when you go to record your data on the CASLLS forms. It's clear and concise. And then the last point would be to use some kind of a grammar text. An English grammar text or a reference material is very helpful. Creators of the CASLLS recommend choosing your short-term objectives from your list of yearly objectives. Depending upon the child, you might choose as many as 12 to 20 targets across domains to work on simultaneously. From your monthly targets, you could choose your weekly targets or objectives. involving as many staff and family members as possible, because the more people you have involved working on the same skills, the more progress you're going to see and the quicker the child will move on. So keep in mind our purpose, and our purpose is to close the gap between the child's language age and his or her chronological age. Our ultimate goal then is to aim for 1 year's growth in 1 year's time.
While this presentation is meant to act as an overview of the CASLLS, we would like to offer some suggestions for some next steps. First of all, familiarize yourself with the forms. Be aware of the grammatical structures covered on each form, as well as the age equivalencies of each form. Then prepare yourself for language sampling. Make sure you have the equipment necessary to get a good recording of a language sample. And also you want to make sure you have the materials that you need for the specific student to get a language sample.
So now it's your turn to practice using the CASLLS. While watching the following videotape, see if you can begin to plot the child's expressive language on the appropriate form. And remember, the more you practice, the more skilled you become.
Wow. So you've got it all set up. You asked your mom.
And I already have a horse sandbox.
What is that?
Well, it's sand. It's like a beach, but it's pretend.
It's pretend, And there's sand, but, oh, so it's like, is it in your backyard or in your house?
In my house.
And it's what is it? It's full of sand? And what do you do with it?
We put toys in it, like horses.
Oh, okay, so is it like a toy box? Oh, but it has sand. Oh, okay. So you're gonna get your horse trailer. That's what you want. You're gonna have for your horses, and you're gonna have cake, piñata, ice cream, and did you already have cake yesterday? Because yesterday was your birthday, right? Did you guys have cake yesterday? You did. What kind of cake did you have yesterday?
Chocolate.
Chocolate cake. Did your mom buy the cake or did she make the cake?
He bought it.
You know what? At my house this weekend, we had a birthday for our biggest girl, Sophia.
Oh, how old is she?
She is 15.
Whoa.